Where we left us off on our journey, which was a little frightening, is that we had learned that you're in there, 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 you're in there. You experience the world as it comes in. You experience the world as it comes in. You're in there, 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 you're in there. But that wasn't quite enough. As it came in, you had to digest it. It had to pass through you. You're in there, you're in there, you're in there, you're in there. You had to embrace it and imbibe it. You're in there, you're in there, you're in there. And that's not always so easy. That's not always so easy. That's not always so easy. And so what will ended up doing, your assertion of will, was to push away some things and cling to other things. Push, cling. Seemed like an innocent thing to do, but where it left you was with these patterns stored inside your mind, Now because you held a specific image, it became something you like and something you don't like. And so you started looking for what you like and started trying to avoid what you don't like, and everything that came in started stimulating those things inside your mind. You have also this other power, which is the ability to abstract from what is coming in from the real world and play. Microsoft says, where do you want to go today? Where do you want to go? Forget the computer. Your mind is the ultimate of that. Your mind is the ultimate of that. The question is, what are you doing with it? The question is, what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? What programs are you running?
Welcome to the Almost Awakened podcast with your host, Bill Reel.
How do you want to start this?
It's up to you, man.
Okay.
I'm just gonna be like super chill and just like flowing with the chi, with the universe on this one. I'm not gonna resist anything. I'm not gonna want anything. I'm just gonna let things flow in and out. And
yeah, you're just gonna absorb every moment as it unfolds in front of you.
That's right.
We'll see how that works in real life application.
Groovy.
All right, let's do it this way then. So are we doing this? We're doing this as a joint thing. So this is Infants on Thrones as well, right?
Sure.
Cool. All right.
Almost awakened infants on thrones.
Yeah.
So kind of drowsy, drowsy infants on thrones.
This is before coffee, the Infants on Thrones Almost Awakened edition. The host of Almost Awakened, Bill Reel, here with Glenn Ostlund, the host of Infants on Thrones.
Yeah.
We've had this conversation now a few times as we've been talking about your podcast, Bathing with God, and you thought it would be interesting to sit down and to discuss this Michael Singer audio, which I'm having a lot of fun with. I really enjoyed listening to 4, 5, and 6, and I listened to them again. And
did you listen to them twice?
I did. I listened to them twice. Yes.
Nice.
And so let me start off here. In the last time we had a conversation, I was talking about how I deal with my family, and I was trying to share this better way of doing things, which is to try and be present, to try to be aware that you're aware, and when disturbances come up inside you, to just sit with them and to not react in unhealthy ways, but instead to respond. And you saw that as you laughed a little bit and you said, I'm skeptical that we really can do that. But that really seems to be what Michael Singer is saying, that we surrender.
No. That's not what I said, Bill.
Okay, what did you say? You said I'm a skeptic about such things, like, oh yeah, can we really change and be better? And
no, what I was laughing at was the like drawing a distinction between the words react and respond. Like one of those ways is the good way to do it. One of those ways is a bad way to do it. And then it sets up this kind of dichotomy of like self-criticism. It didn't work that time, so I must have been doing the wrong one. I must have been reacting instead of responding, or I was responding instead of reacting. And so what I was doing was what you said hit my stuff, and I was recognizing that it hit my stuff, and I was laughing at it to release it.
I got you. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that solves everything.
So I have these samskaras inside of me, and we're going to talk more tonight about samskaras, right?
I love this stuff too. Yeah, it's good stuff.
And I've got this stuff inside of me that I was just acknowledging in that moment, because I mean, honestly, what you said kind of hit and triggered those things of my skepticism, my cynicism. And so I was acknowledging it in that moment. But and it's because you were talking about Thomas McConkie saying you've got like a bowl of water in front of you and I just want to dump out the bowl of water. And yeah. So I certainly think that in the case of your family, trying to let things be what they are rather than get upset because they aren't something different than what they are that you want them to be, that is what Michael Singer's talking about in here, and recognizing the role that you play, like what you're bringing to that situation. Why is it that you want things a certain way? And if it's not a certain way, you're not going to be okay with it. Well, take responsibility then. You're the one that put those parameters in place that said, if it doesn't come in this particular way, then I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah, this is such good stuff. So part 4 starts off, he makes this comment where learning is letting the experience all the way in, whereas the sanskaras, or these blockages that we have in us, they don't get all the way in. And this idea that whenever we experience good things and bad things, when we experience positive things happening to us, we now want more of this positive. So if things happen in a way that's not what we want, then it is a negative. And if things don't happen that we do want, then that also is disrupting to us. So as experiences, again, I'm going to try to explain to the listener, and feel free to jump in. You've listened to stuff way more than me. But as I listened to this the first time, it's this idea that whenever things occur to us, and I always want to say trauma, because it's the bad that I think we all tend to focus on that turns into unhealthy reactions and unhealthy mechanisms in us.
The reason that spiritually they try to bring you back to the present moment is because you're lost in your personal mind. And your personal mind is the worst place to be. All it does is complain and have trouble and try to manipulate the world and so on. So by focusing on the current moment, it brings you out of that, okay, into focusing on something other than the personal mind. You also have the ability to transcend the personal mind and visit your pure intellectual mind and create and do things and be an engineer and anything, artistry, computer science, engineering, all of it's beautiful. You are to use your mind. It is not that you're just not supposed to use it for this personal garbage of having stored experiences that you like and don't like, and then thinking that the whole world is supposed to match what you stored. It's the funniest thing in the world.
But when experiences and things happen that disappoint us, hurt us, frustrate us, sadden us, anger us, rather than just let that moment flow through us, as Michael tends to continually point at, we instead get what he calls these blockages or sanskaras. And now when the next experience happens that is similar to this. So if I had my bike stolen as a kid, now anytime somebody appears to be taking something that belongs to me, I react really strongly in the beginning before I even know what the full story is. And that these blockages that occur over the course of our life cause us to feel a disturbance in us, whatever that disturbance is, and we tend to name it. We'll give it a name. It's jealousy, it's anger, it's frustration, it's sadness, it's bitterness, whatever it is. And the moment our brain puts that label on, now our ego puts up walls and protections and shields to protect us from being hurt by others, and it influences us to manipulate others to change their experience to fit what we want, and it gets us to manipulate people to stop doing the things we don't want, and it causes us to continually want to. And I'm probably skipping through 4, 5, and 6 here, to continually search for these optimal experiences. But by always searching for the optimal experience, we're continually disappointed. And he uses a beautiful example in one of the later parts where he talks about, you know, what you wanted was to get married. And if you just got married, it'd make you happy. And then you get married and you're not really that happy. And now you think, well, if we just have kids will solve the problem. Then you have kids and that doesn't solve it, just brings more headaches and frustrations and more sanskaras. And So you say, and then even just having the wedding for the marriage, you're like, oh, I'll have this perfect wedding. I'll make sure it looks like this, make sure these people are coming, make sure we have it in this place. And then that day comes and it rains and people are pissed off and things don't go the way you want them to. You're always trying to make your life match what your insides want it to look like. And what Michael's getting to as he gets through 4, 5, and 6, and there are more parts to come. So I don't know where we go from here, but I can guess. But what he does say is that we have to learn, the surrender is to learn to just let the world unfold as it does. Let the emotions, the feelings, just pass through us. Let the thoughts of reaction just pass through us, not act out because of the disturbance inside us, but instead just, as I think I pointed to in the last episode, just sit with those disturbances, recognize that life is what we perceive as good and bad, and it's continually happening all the time. Our expectations are met and we're happy. Our expectations are not met and we're upset and frustrated. And if we can just sit with life being beautiful, and even in the bad moments, just sit with them kind of going by and happening, that we tend to show up in the world in better, healthier ways. And we tend to be more present. And we tend to find more enjoyment in the present moment rather than losing our sleep and having emotional breakdowns over things never being exactly the way we want them to be. So all that said, what are your thoughts there? Am I hitting the nail on the head? Is that the general gist of what he's trying to give us?
Well, I mean, as I'm listening to you, Bill, I'm thinking, I guess it's just interesting to me to hear what you take from it, you know? So like you're asking me, is that what he's trying to say? I don't know if that's what he's trying to say or not. This is what you've taken from it. I think there's some differences in the way that you expressed it and the way that I'm understanding it, but I don't want to frame it as like one is right or one is wrong, because you know it's just like the way that we're engaging with this material here. If I could summarize part 4, I would say part 4 is about the mind, part 5 is about the heart, and I'm not sure what to say about part 6.
It's the predicament.
You know, what he's talking about is, how do you find peace of mind? How do you create peace of mind? And I think it would be helpful probably for the listeners that haven't listened to this Michael Singer course material to define samskara a little bit, so that they know what we're talking about with samskara. I'm curious to hear how you understand this concept of a samskara, how you would define it, and maybe a simplification. He brings this up many times, that there's the world that's happening all around us. There's what we think about it, and there's how we feel about it. And he goes and he says that's primarily the main 3 things that are going on. And the world that's happening around us, it's a result of actions that have been put into place going back at least 13.8 billion years ago. Most of what's going on in any moment that we're in doesn't have anything to do with us. If you removed us from that moment would still be going on. There are influences that we have, but it's so small in the grand scheme of things. So there's that, the world going on. Most of what we experience are our thoughts, that what our mind is telling us about what's going on in the outside world, and then the things that we feel, what we feel about that. And so he talks about the mind in part 4. He talks about the heart in part 5, and how the heart gets closed and how to open up the heart to really be, to me, I guess if I was going to summarize this whole thing, I'd say, instead of trying to find peace from outside in the world, to find peace inside and become, I don't want to be Boyd K. Packer here and talk about little factories, but your heart could be a little factory that manufactures love and compassion and charity and pushes that out into the world, and that becomes the source of love, rather than expecting things to just line up exactly the way that you want them or not. But so much of what he says relies on this idea of a samskara, which is a pattern. And so I think I want to turn it over to you, Bill, and just hear your thoughts on what samskaras are, how they are formed, and what they do.
I think it's a huge question. My understanding, and I think I'm going to say things that are outside of what he said as well. I think we are born into this world with certain dispositions. And I think as the world happens, our parents raise us a certain way. Our neighborhood gives us certain experiences. Our school system gives us certain experiences. Any relationship we have with another human being, any world events that are happening, any cultural norms or expectations that are placed upon us. And all of those cause us internally to create likes and dislikes, to create things that really excite us and things we're really having a deep aversion to. And we are continually trying to get the outside world to show up in a way that, as Michael says, meets all of our stuff inside the right way, so that every moment I am having the optimal, joyful experience. And I'm constantly getting lost in the past about the way things happened before, and the worry that this present moment is turning into that negative thing that happened before, or that I'm not getting this present moment to turn into the really awesome way that party or that dinner or that get together happened before. And whenever the world isn't showing up exactly as my internal dispositions want it to be, I'm constantly disappointed in how the world is being in this moment. And I'm deeply focused on trying to change it and alter it, manipulate it into being what I want it to be, so that I can be really happy right now, really joyful right now, so that I can make sure the future provides me with just happiness, that I can sit and think about the past so I can make those things all work out and go away for the bad things that happened. And I'm constantly lost in the world showing up in such a way that all my needs and wants and desires are met in this given moment, but to the degree that I'm really not being that present anyway. And so the samskara to me is all these little things inside that want the world to be a certain way and the way I want the world. So me and my wife and I went to a restaurant last night to have dinner. And she wants the experience to unfold a certain way. I want the experience to unfold a certain way. She's having certain kinds of conversation with me. I want to talk about other things. And so the more humans you add into any experience, the more individual dispositions that come into play. And so now you have two people trying to have an experience that makes them happy. And now neither one of us we're both being disappointed on some level. And so as I'm needing the world to show up in whatever way I need it to be okay and to feel at peace and to be comfortable and to be happy, the world is continually not showing up exactly like that. So I'm all the time being disappointed by this internal groundwork inside me that is wanting a certain life to be. And what Michael's, I think, is pointing to is that you can keep doing that, but it just never works. Again, you wanted the wedding to be perfect. It wasn't. You wanted the marriage to bring you happiness. It still didn't, even after you got married, you're still chasing happiness. You have the kids, you're still chasing happiness. You get the promotion at work, you're still chasing happiness. You have great friendships and you have this wonderful party and you have this great get together and everything feels perfect that night. You finally got it. And then you wake up the next morning and we're right back to chasing it again. And so the samskaras to me are the internal borders, boundaries, dispositions, perspectives that continually are requiring the next thing to be just right so that you can be happy. And very few moments in your life will actually hand you that. So to follow it up, it seems like you got to find a way to, as you point out, not need the outside world to show up a certain way, but learn to just accept that the world just unfolds as it does, with things that will will fluster you and things that will bring you great joy and ecstasy. And you have to learn to live with the yin and the yang, because that's just life. And he's trying to offer you the way in which you stop imposing your will on the outside world and instead learn to sit with your insides in ways that allow you to be okay internally, regardless of what's going on in the outside world.
Yeah, I think that he might push back a little bit at that last thing that you said, that you might be okay internally no matter what's going on in the outside world. I don't know that that's necessarily it.
And you're probably right, because he talks about death and he says, like, when death happens, all this emotion comes in.
Yeah.
He's not trying to say you find a way not to feel it.
Right.
You still feel it. You just
Right.
accept that it's life and it happens.
But if you hold on to it and you become afraid, and you're not afraid, you're afraid of your thought. It's just so funny. You have an autoimmune disease. You're afraid of yourself. Do you understand that? You've literally created within your mind hell, so that it's telling you what you don't want to happen, what you do want to happen, and so on. Then it's out there judging everything that's unfolding based on what you stored inside. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it right? Is it wrong? All based on your stuff. That's why nobody agrees with anybody else. Let's do that for a moment, okay? The experiences that came in through your eyes, we already said that. No one else has ever had them. And now I move you through time and space, and you keep having other ones. Well, nobody else has had any of them. So what you have inside your mind is completely different than what everybody else has inside their mind. Do you understand that? It can't be otherwise, because the data that came in your mind came in from the experiences you had. Nobody else had those experiences, ever. Not even close. Not your husband, not your children, not even close. So what you have stored inside your mind, not only are the experiences different, but they hit you different. So you store different ones. So just understand, if you think your faces look different and your bodies look different, they might as well be identical twins compared to what your minds look like.
Yeah, he talks a lot about energy. And the first time I listened to it, it was a little triggering to me. It seemed a little woo-woo to have him talk so much about energy. But the more I listened to it, and the more I realized that really is what's going on. The emotions that we feel are energy. The thoughts that we think are energy. The way that we're sensing the world around us and we're creating this perception is energy. And it's these electrical impulses in our brains that are creating this image that we live with as our reality. But so I think one of my favorite images that he gave is the Colorado River as this energy that just wants to flow. And a samskara is a preference for how it flows. Or you decide to put a dam. You're going to put, what is it, the Hoover Dam with the Colorado River, and that gives you Lake Powell? I don't know if it's the Hoover Dam or whatever it is. But you know, like if once you put that dam there and you stop the natural flow, you get this buildup of pressure, and you're going to need people to maintain that dam because the water just wants to burst out. And there's this energy that these experiences that we have in life, like I can think of one with my son when he was probably 6 years old, and my wife and I were fairly newly divorced, and he was over at my house, and I wanted to do this really special breakfast for him. So I made him something that I love, which is pancakes with mangoes and blueberries in it. And he didn't want it. And I was thinking, oh, come on, you ungrateful kid. I went to all this trouble to make you're going to like it, damn it. And I forced him to eat it. And it was just a miserable experience. I filmed it. I've got it on YouTube, or not on YouTube, on Facebook. It's horrible. It's horrible to watch my 6-year-old son just like, no. And I'm like going, no, you take a bite. You're going to like this. I mean, he's 16 now. He still doesn't like mangoes or blueberries. And what I think is that he stored this samskara of associating mangoes with that feeling that he was feeling at the time of stress that, I was forcing him to do something he didn't want to do. And so now anytime mangoes come around, he just kind of like, he kind of recoils. He doesn't like it. It's that instead of it being this experience that kind of came and went, he's held on to it because of that trauma. And that trauma is you're kind of like bracing yourself. And the image that Michael Singer gave, I think in part 3, was like a plasma TV screen that when you pause the screen, it freezes in place. And so this experience that happened 10 years ago, it's still in my son's mind. It's still in his subconscious. It's this automatic program that still runs, and it influences his set of preferences. And I think that's probably a set of preferences is the way that I like to understand what samskaras are, and these programs that kind of run the way that we experience the world. And so I gave an example of one where there was something that he didn't like, but I could just as easily give an example of something that we do like and that we enjoy. And so it's recorded in our minds as, oh, this is a good thing. I felt this way because of these circumstances that happened. Therefore, these circumstances are always going to bring this feeling. You gave the example of taking your friends out to dinner or something. Michael Singer gives the example of a restaurant. You go to a restaurant, it's this awesome experience. And so you tell all your friends, oh, you got to go to this restaurant. It's the best thing. You're going to love it. And you take them, and it's just not as good as the last time because maybe it's a different chef, that the night's different. You're in a different mood. There's all kinds of different variables in here. And so you're apologizing. No, I swear it was better than what we experienced, because we're constantly having these comparisons, freezing that moment in the past, saying, this is the ideal, this is the standard, this is what it was that brought me happiness and joy. And I'm trying to recreate that, and you just can't exactly. And so trying, recognizing when those feelings come in, anytime you're feeling a feeling or you're thinking a thought, you can say, oh, this is a result of this filter that I've built, this set of preferences that I've built. I'm not these feelings. I'm not these thoughts. I'm not this filter, but I'm experiencing it. And that's why I'm feeling like I need to do X, Y, or Z. So I think it's just kind of that recognition. And maybe if you're Thomas McConkie and you're holding a bowl of water, then you can turn it over and dump it out. But I don't know if samskaras can just be dumped out quite like that bowl of water. But I think that is what you're trying to do is take that dam down so that the Colorado River can continue to just flow. And you don't have all of this buildup, all of this pressure.
Yeah. So 2 things. One is that in your situation you shared about you and your son, I'm not doing this to poke at you, but I want to draw attention to it, which is you had your own samskaras, right? You needed your kid to like things the way you like things.
Yeah.
And you needed your kid to show gratitude. You needed your kid to be thankful and to smile and to be happy and to come into that experience being thrilled that you had gone out of your way and put so much effort into trying to make this really cool birthday.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he didn't. And so your stuff got bumped into.
Yeah.
And so you show up as dad, and I do this all the time as dad. I'm like, God damn it. Can't we just do things the right way here? Yeah. I was out at dinner this past week. Our grandson had his first birthday. It's our first grandchild, our only grandchild as of right now. It was his first birthday. Family from her side, from my son's wife's family was in town. And I take all these people out to dinner, and I'm footing the bill. And I don't, no arrogance in that. Like everybody else, I just have the means, and we did it. So I foot the bill. And my daughter, who's came in from California, she had just moved there a few months back and kind of struggling to get by. And I buy dinner for everybody. And my daughter orders wings, and her wings come out. I did the order because she wasn't going to get there until a little late. So she says, Dad, order me wings. Her husband says she doesn't want any sauce. And I'm like, that seems crazy. So I ask her, do you want that sauce on that? She goes, oh yeah, please don't let that get messed up. So it shows up with sauce, but it also has blue cheese crumbles, and she hates blue cheese. But I paid for the damn meal, right? So she starts moaning and groaning. I'm not going to eat it. She starts crying. She has this breakdown over, and so her stuff got bumped into, right?
Yeah.
The blue cheese is atrocious to her, and it's not the way she wanted. She's disappointed that people who ordered for her couldn't get it right. She's hurt by the fact it didn't show up right. She's hungry. She's had a long day. So there's reason why she's all poked. And now I'm all pissed off. But I also, again, being a little older, a little wiser, I sit with that for a moment. I try to talk to her so I'm not drawing attention with anybody else. I'm not trying to embarrass her. I say, hey, daughter, life is going to throw things at you. Not everything is going to happen the way you want it to. My 2 cents is that if you want to be a healthy adult in this world, that sometimes you got to learn to make the best out of things when they don't happen the way you want them to. And then she kind of fires back at me, and she's still pissed. So now I'm starting to get upset. I'm starting to get irritated. Like, damn it, fucking just paid your meal. And excuse my language, but just paid your damn meal. Just eat the damn food and let's move on. And she couldn't. So I had to, I being the older person, and again, hoping there's a little bit of wisdom here, I just let it go. I moved on. I just said, it's not worth fighting over. She wants to be upset. She gets to be upset. And hopefully she learns something from this experience that she takes with her and figures out a better way to do this the next time. But this shit is happening every day, Glenn. This is how we humans interact with each other. Either you're making me happy or you're not. And then I'm trying to figure out how to get you to do the things you need to do to make me happy. We're constantly bumping into each other's stuff.
And not recognizing that she's really the one that was causing herself to be upset. And you're the one that was causing yourself to be upset. And, at any point, you could have said, oh, well, I'll send this back. I'll ask the waitress if she'll bring out some without the blue cheese, and or I'll order you another one without blue cheese. But there's this stuff that we're carrying around. Like, no, you've got to do it the right way. You're being ungrateful. You're making a big, deal. Like that's your stuff. Your samskaras, like, ugh, kind of thing. And so you're making yourself annoyed at the way that she's responding. She's making herself annoyed because these things didn't come out the right way. And like all of us, I think, want to try to fix what's wrong with everybody else rather than taking that responsibility of, oh, wait, this is because I have a preference that isn't being met. I'm going to chill out on this. I'm going to take a pill. I'm going to relax on this. And not have this become then the moment that we're experiencing that's full of this turmoil that I've created because my preferences aren't what's happening outside of me.
Yeah, sometimes your preferences will be met, sometimes they won't. Can we get to a place where we're aware as these emotions rise up inside us? And I really do. I think this all ties into Buddhism and the benefits of meditation. And the moment you can be aware of the ego as it's happening, almost as if the ego is an outsider.
Yeah. Rather
than it's me and I'm just pissed right now. Rather you go like, oh my gosh, I noticed that there's something inside me that wants to be pissed right now.
Yeah.
And when you are aware, when you observe the observer, when you're aware that you're aware, you begin to develop an ability to see those emotional feelings rising up in you as separate from you.
Yeah.
And you can now begin to go like, oh, I'm going to make an active choice to just sit with that disruption and let it last as long as it does, and it'll go away. And then we move on with life without having to disrupt the outside world because it's not happening the way I want it to.
Yeah. And you still feel, so you still feel the frustration of your daughter throwing a fit that there's blue cheese on the wings, and you might even still be judging it internally. Maybe over time you get to a place where you're not judging it internally. But you just go, okay, I'm going to give myself a little mental timeout because I don't want to respond from a place of annoyance or anger. I don't want to escalate the situation. I want to be a peacemaker. and so I'm going to make peace.
Yeah.
In the situation.
Yeah. And I could have at any moment, rather than be inside my head, getting all spiraling out of control, I could have just went back to eating my meal and talking to my wife, which is eventually what I did after about a minute of trying to give her some advice and in a legitimate, healthy way. And it backfired. I immediately turned to my wife and just moved on, started eating my food. And if she wants to stay in that space of being disrupted, she gets to do that. That's what, what we humans get to do. We get to have breakdowns at times and be hurt and be upset and spiral out. And it doesn't mean that the rest of us do if someone is.
Yeah.
We can move on with our day and enjoy it and not let those things keep bumping up against our stuff.
And I think the really advanced move is to be grateful that experience bumped up against your stuff and go, wow, this showed me that I've still got these edges here. I'm still a rough stone rolling, and I've got these corners and edges. I'm going to see how many of these I can throw in here.
Yeah, how many of these religious cliches that some of the audience will know and some won't. I love it.
But seriously, it's every single one of those moments is teaching you about yourself. It's teaching you about, okay, what are these triggers that I'm carrying around inside? What are my samskars? What is the shape of my samskars? And am I really going to let these sets of preferences run my life? And I'm going to be asleep to them and just go where they take me? Or am I going to become awake? Am I going to take control of them and go, actually, I'd like to craft a different feeling in this moment? There was one point, I think, in part 4 where he was talking about thoughts, and he was saying, there's different kinds of thoughts, but 95% of the thoughts, and I mean, this is an arbitrary number that he gave, but about 95% of the thoughts are just automatic thoughts that just come up as a result of living life. You look at your phone, you see the clock, and you realize, oh, I was supposed to contact this guy. Oh, I didn't. I forgot. Man, he's going to hate me for this. And you start doing this thing that it's just an automated response to things. But then every once in a while, you can create, using your will, you can create your own thoughts. And the example he says is, in your mind right now, I want you to say hello. Just in your mind right now, say hello, hello, hello. Did you do it? Whether you did or not, it's an expression of your will. You either chose to do it or chose not to do it. So you're like creating and generating these thoughts on your own. But a lot of times when we're just not paying attention, we find this inner chatter in our mind and these thoughts that are going on that then make us, we worry, we have anxiety. We're worrying about things that haven't happened or that aren't going to happen, that might happen. And those are formed by these samskaras, these sets of preferences that are mostly in our subconscious, that have been collected and gathered over the course of our life as we've made note. Oh, I like this kind of thing. Oh, I don't like this kind of thing. Oh, I want more of this kind of thing. Oh, I don't want any more of this kind of thing. He says something at one point, if anybody's upset, it's for one of two reasons. Either you got something that you didn't want, or you didn't get something that you wanted. Something happened to you that you didn't want to have happen, or something didn't happen to you that you wanted to have happen. And it pretty much boils down to those kinds of things. So it's the sets of preferences that, and this is the Buddhist desire is the source of suffering teaching, because we have these sets of preferences that we desire that things are a certain way when the majority of time they aren't. We suffer as a result of it. Yeah, but we're the ones that created that nest of samskaras in the first place, with that little bit of will that we have to create a thought that says, oh, I like this, or oh, I don't like this. I want more of this. I don't want more of this. And we built that, so we can unravel it. That is the suggestion from Michael Singer. He's been doing this since the early 70s, and I've been doing it since June. So I don't know if it's true or not, but this is what he's saying, and I like the message.
Yeah, there's parts of it I want to push back in, so I will get to those here in a little bit. But the general gist of what he's saying feels like stuff that I've been swimming in for a few years anyway. Mm-hmm. This idea of being present, this idea of recognizing these disturbances rise up in you, and then we humans immediately want to name them. And it's just a sensation, right? What you would name as jealousy or anger or sadness or frustration They're just sensations. Your body feels something, then your brain names it. And if you can get in between that process and go, oh, there's a sensation, but let's try to stay away from naming it. I want to name it this, but let's not do that. Let's just sit with this sensation I'm feeling, and let's try to keep the brain away from naming it, or at least be aware that it's trying to, and kind of sit with not allowing it to. And then you sit with that sensation, and I think it begins to allow you to show up in a present moment differently.
Yeah. And that's something I kind of push back on too, because I know I've heard that a lot, like that when you name it, that's the equivalent of building the dam that stops up the Colorado River, like that's a way of taking this energy or this emotion and freezing it into a certain form by the name that you're giving it, the label that you're giving it.
I think it takes on a story.
Probably. And like I said, I've been doing, I started listening to this in June. I don't know how to not name things. And so maybe I just don't like that because I can't not do it. I don't like this thing. It makes it seem like, oh, if I'm naming something, then I'm doing it wrong. And I don't know. There's something about that that just doesn't really sit well with me, Bill, about like not naming things. I don't know how we can not name things. Have you done that? Have you had any success in doing this?
Again, I'm not far enough in to say I'm reporting back major success, but on less than a half dozen occasions, yeah, I've been able to, whereas I've in an experience that's similar to an experience that's happened 100 times before, where I lose my shit, I feel the sensation. I now observe the observer, and I see that in a normal instance, I would lose my shit here. But instead I sit with the sensation and go like, okay, this is whatever. I would want to name this thing and now go into the story of how it's happened 100 times before and lose my shit again. And instead I go, there's that feeling. I'll tell you what I'm going to do this time. I'm going to try something different. I'm just going to sit here.
I don't want to teach you how to change your emotions, how to make this happen or that happen or never feel this. No, that's not what I'm going to teach you in the rest of this course. I want to teach you how to be you while the emotions go through their natural changes. Because if you can stay seated in the seat of self while these different shifts are taking place, we have a name for that. And it's a very high one. It's called becoming established in the seat of self. So the emotions can change. You notice them changing, but you don't go anywhere. You're the one who notices this. You're the one who hears the thoughts. You're the one who looks out through the eyes. Who is this one? This is the one that it's all about. There is no spirituality anywhere except in the seat of self. The seat of self is spirit, and spirituality is about spirit.
And I'm going to respond with healthy dialogue in the conversation I'm at, recognizing my ego wants to just go crazy. My ego wants to put somebody in their place. It wants to tell somebody they're wrong. It wants to give them advice and fix the situation for them. And instead, I still sense that path's right there. I could go down it. And instead, I'm choosing a different path, which is just to be present with them and to let them speak, not try to fix it, not try to tell them they're screwing up it's just a different way. And I don't even know if I can describe it right because it's happened 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah.
And sadly, I'm still failing 99.2% of the time.
Yeah. Well, here's for failing only 99.1% of the time. I'm rooting for you, Bill. But I can tell you the times where I've had the most success with that is telling stories about my ex-wife and the horrible things that she did to me that, I present myself as a victim of circumstance. And I've recognized that there have been times where people are talking about those kinds of things. And in the past, I would have gone, oh yeah, well, I had this experience where blah, 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 blah. And that in doing that, I'm freezing those experiences and all of the feelings that are along with that. I'm keeping it in my mind. It's like clay that I keep pushing and reinforcing into this certain shape instead of just like not. Like, I don't need to tell that story anymore. That was 10 years ago. I don't need to keep reliving it and re-traumatizing myself. And I can also recognize that was just my perspective of things at the time. That probably isn't even really the truth of what actually was going on. So I can let that go. I can surrender that experience. I can recognize that the story that I'm telling about it is a fiction that I created because I wanted to feel like a victim and get other people's sympathy to help me go through a hard time and go, oh, wow, I can't believe she treated you like that. You don't deserve that. You're a good guy. And I'm getting like these attaboys and it feels good. And, so there's this payoff as to why I was telling this victim story about myself. So I guess in the like not naming things category, retiring that story, putting it away, and the more times I feel the impulse for it to come up and I don't go there, the easier it is for me to not go there. And I think what will happen is I'll just get to a place where I don't even have that impulse come up anymore. And it's basically just gone. It isn't something that makes me feel anything anymore, because it's just back in the past and I've taken the dam down from the Colorado River and I'm just letting it flow because it was something that was in the past. It's not, So I think that's where I probably do that with the naming and have had the most success with it.
I think it has to be. We have to talk about this for a moment, which is in part 4. I think it's part 4. And by the way, I write down part 4 and I make my notes, and then I make more notes about part 5 and more notes about part 6. But I didn't put a line in and say, here's where part 5 started and here's where part 6 started. But I think it's in part 4 where he talks about dreams and what benefit dreams are. Yeah. And I think the listeners need to hear this, which is, and I think there's some truth to this. I don't think it's all true. I dreamed last night as I woke up this morning, I dreamed that I was with a group of people and I said, I will eat that bug. There was a bug up high in the room. And I said, I will eat that bug if all of you will throw in $20. And so in my dream, some people threw in $20. One guy got out like a bunch of 20s and hand them to me, but hand them to me privately so that he wouldn't get recognition for giving me the most money. Yeah. And then I'm about ready to eat the bug and then I wake up. So I think, some dreams are just dreams. I don't think they're fixing Sam's scars. Maybe they are, but it's certainly not something I could figure out. But I do think what Michael points to in part 4 is this idea that some of these irritations that happen to us, or sometimes things happening good, and we don't get the chance in the real world to resolve them, or we just didn't take the opportunity to resolve them. And that our dreams serve us a therapeutic benefit of allowing us to resolve these clogged up dams in the river without having to actually resolve them in real life. We ought to be appreciative and think about and understand these connections with our dreams, that our dreams give us of course, dreams don't always happen in realistic ways, and most of the time don't. There's aspects to our dreams that are fantasy land or superpowers or crazy animals or dragons or whatever. I remember one dream when I was a kid, I dreamed it over and over again of my family being chased by this giant killer bear. And if I could go back to that moment, I bet I could find something I was afraid of that was trying to resolve itself through this dream. But that dreams are a way for us to resolve these blockages without actually real life resolving them. So maybe we're doing a good job at work, but our boss is having a bad day and they lash out at us. And so now we're hurt and we're upset, but we can't put our boss in their place. So we just move on with our day, but we're frustrated because we couldn't resolve it. We couldn't get our boss to acknowledge that we didn't do that thing wrong. And then we go home that night and we have some dream that has to do with being frustrated, and we're allowed to essentially release that frustration. I think we ought to make this connection and see that some of our dreams have this real benefit of allowing us to unclog these samskaras.
Yeah. Well, let me make a pivot away from Michael Singer for a minute. There's a book that I've been listening to called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. And I recently heard him, he was in a chapter talking about dreams. And what he said about dreams, which I thought was really interesting, is that it's kind of like a filing system where the activities of the day are being filed into our unconscious minds. And so we're kind of like trying to match up what we encountered in the course of that day, which filing cabinets it fits into in our subconscious, and what the dream experience is kind of where those two things are meeting in all of these weird different images that kind of feel like they've got something and maybe feel like they don't. And that was an interesting idea. And I don't know if it's completely inconsistent with what Michael Singer said, but Michael Singer says that, like you dam up the Colorado River with the Hoover Dam, we're walking around with all of these energetic pressures that we've stored through the course of our life, that the water wants to come out. This pressure is building up and it wants to be released. It wants to just flow. And that dreams are a way that the dam is released and a little bit of that energy gets let out. And maybe it gets let out in the form of a bear. Maybe it gets let out in the form of a bug that you want to eat for $20 or more. I don't know what that is. But I think it's an interesting idea that we are walking around with all of the experiences we've ever had. Have you seen the movie Lucy with Scarlett Johansson?
I think so, but I don't want to swear by it.
Okay. I'd like to recommend that you go and watch that movie, Bill. So the premise of the movie, and I'll have some spoilers in here, it doesn't matter. She gets kidnapped and she's being used as a drug mule, and they put this drug like in her abdomen. But basically the impact of this drug on her is that it activates 100% of her brain. So she goes from like 5% to 10% to 20% to 30%. And as she's increasing her capacity to access this power in her brain, it's like she's developing superpowers, but she's able to kind of connect with the network of information and energy that's all around her. But first she starts remembering every experience that she's ever had. And she has this telephone call while she's talking with her mom. She's like,
Mom,
Yes?
I feel everything.
What do you mean, sweetie?
The space, the air, the vibrations, the people. I can feel the gravity. I can feel the rotation of the earth. The heat leaving my body. The blood in my veins. I can feel my brain. The deepest parts of my memory.
Sweetie, we have a bad connection. I can't hear you so well. What did you say about memory?
The pain in my mouth. When I had braces, I can remember the feeling of your hand on my forehead when I ran a fever. I remember stroking the cat. It was so soft.
The cat? What cat, honey?
A Siamese with blue eyes and a broken tail.
Sweetie, you can't possibly remember that. You were barely a year old.
I remember the taste of your milk in my mouth. The room. The liquid.
Sweetie, what are you talking about?
I just want to tell you that I love you, Mom and Dad.
Sweetie.
And I want to thank you for the 1,000 kisses that I can still feel on my face.
and so it's this idea, and I know this is a fictional movie, but that all of the experiences that we've ever had are absorbed in this sponge brain mind that we carry around, and most of it is in part it is subconscious. It's outside of our waking consciousness, but it's there, and it influences us in ways that we usually aren't very conscious of by definition. And so that I think what you're saying, what you heard from Michael Singer, that our dreams are a way that our subconscious kind of opens up and releases some of this energy and could give us an idea of what some of those samskaras are in there. But it's not, I don't think the message is really about dreams as much as it is what you said earlier. When you start feeling these emotions rise up inside of you, whatever the emotion is, whether it's absolute joy and ecstasy, or it's fear or jealousy or rage or pride or whatever it is, are you present enough that you can reverse engineer that emotion to figure out, okay, what is the shape of the samskara that is projecting this image onto me? Like, why is it that I'm feeling this way? What's the energy that's stuck inside of me that wants to be released, that I haven't released yet, that is now giving me this kind of experience? And what, if anything, can I do to release it? And what is the impact of me not releasing it? That's the big subject in part 5, where he's talking about, instead of talking about the mind and thoughts that he talks about primarily in 4, he's talking about feelings and the heart, metaphorical heart, in part 5. And that what these samskaras do is they block and they transmute, they change the energy, the emotions that are coming. They take the shape of the samskara instead of whatever they really are, or whatever they could be if they weren't being filtered through this pattern of preferences and expectations, this filter through which we experience the world.
It's very beautiful to talk about this stuff, because most people don't ever understand anything. This is what most people know about their heart, right? Get it away from me. It is dangerous. It is too sensitive. It is scary. I would rather live in the mind. The mind is a place the soul goes to hide from the heart. Period. Somebody hurts you, you feel this emotion, you go right to that mind. He didn't mean it. He didn't mean it. No, it's okay. Don't take it so personal. That's if you're a spiritual person. Otherwise saying, oh, I'm not going to put up with this. I'm not staying here like this. No way. I'm getting at it. In other words, you're telling your heart, I'll take care of it. The heart's the little sister. You're the big brother. I'll take care of it. He'll be sorry he did that, right or wrong. Okay? You go right to the mind immediately whenever the heart is doing something that you're not comfortable with.
And so learning how to open up your heart, how to unlock it, how to surrender these samskaras, to get out of your own way, how to surrender the parts of yourself that are false so that you can actually experience reality and truth as close as you can to what it is. That's what he's talking about in part 5. I think he continues that in part 6, where you've given a couple examples from 6.
Yeah. So I think here's a good place. So away from these conversations, we're from time to time kind of messaging each other. And I think in the last conversation, we talked a little bit about this, but I think we picked it up maybe in a text message or a Facebook Messenger or something. But I want to talk to you a moment about, like, this idea that Michael's speaking of doesn't seem to fit everyone. Let me give an example: a sociopath or a serial killer, or I just don't think this process is available, at least not to the degree that maybe he's, I'm going to stammer here, that he's offering. I see a serial killer, for instance, me. I want to be able to just live with the moment as it unfolds in front of me, whether it's good or bad. I'm the one who's attaching this label of good or bad. It's just meeting my stuff or it's not meeting my stuff, right? It's running up abrasive to my things or it's running smooth with my stuff. But the reality is there are certain situations in this world where people are being deeply harmed. You know, I lived in Ohio, and an hour east of us was I can't remember what the girl's name was. Amanda Berry was her name. And her and some other women were kidnapped by this guy, and they lived in his basement. And he got these women pregnant, and they had kids, but they were in his basement trapped for decades, like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Their life was atrocious. They were being harmed every day. There are certain people who are in situations that they are constantly being traumatized and harmed by the outside world. And I don't want to reduce this process to saying, like, well, if they just sat present with their harm and just realized the moment as it unfolds in front of them, like, to me, that's bullshit. And so I want to push back at least and say there is some limit. There feels like there's some limit to me of how much shit we should suggest that another human being just absorb and let it flow through them and pass by and then enjoy the next moment as it happens. That there seems to be some degree of which normal life that we can do this, and some degree of really bad stuff happening constantly that it seems unreasonable to ask somebody to just sit and let these moments pass through them as they happen and unfold before them.
Well, I think what you're saying is trying to take this idea of surrender and apply it to a sociopath.
Extreme situations, yeah.
But everything that Michael Singer's talking about is how do you deal with your stuff that's inside of you? And so in the situation that you're talking about this serial killer, is that where they got the what is it, unsinkable, unbreakable, Kimmy Schmidt or whatever that TV show was about? Was that kind of like a parody on that real life situation?
I don't know. And I'm kind of throwing two different things together, which is the very bad people out there who are just doing atrocious things on a consistent basis. Their brain doesn't operate like the rest of us. So take a sociopath, take a serial killer. Their brains don't seem to function in a way that they can be considerate of others and understand situations in such a way that you can realize the impact of your behavior as it's being imposed on those around you. So I just don't think that certain human beings can even process how to be healthier human beings from who they are.
Well, I think,
and then the others,
I think you're probably right, but like my flippant response is going to be, so what to you? Like what, how does that help you when you're sitting with your daughter and they got blue cheese on the wings? Like,
right.
It's those kinds of situations. Like, how do you find peace of mind? Are you going to, like, you heard the news of this guy that did this horrible thing to these people. And now not only is he traumatizing these people that he did, but you're carrying it around with you all the time. And so he's vicariously made you a victim as well, but it's actually you who are doing it by carrying this around and saying, I'm not going to allow myself to have peace of mind because this person never can, and he did horrible things to people. And it really does seem like it's a separate issue. And I don't want to minimize it or belittle those horrible things that happen in the outside world, but I don't think that's what I don't think that's going to help you unlock your heart and become a more loving person by recognizing that they aren't and that they possibly can't be.
And then again, you can come back with the same answer, but I simply would say, like, as everybody's engaging this potential to not let the outside world disrupt you like it does in right now. And as you pointed out, Michael's argument that things are either happening that you don't want or things aren't happening that you do want. Well, some people are in situations that things that are happening that they don't want are continuous, they are extreme, they are atrocious, and I simply would say that there are some situations where things happening to you that you don't want this process may not work for.
I mean, I don't really know what to do with that, Bill. He gives an example of if he's in traffic and the car in front of him is driving really slow. And, I mentioned earlier, he's been doing this for 30 years. So he's kind of mastered this process more, but he says he still gets triggered. He still gets upset that, hey, you're in my way. I want to be going faster. And he catches himself getting annoyed at this other person for what it is that they're doing, that he doesn't have any control over. He can't speed the person up. He can't, move them out of the way. He just has to deal with it. And so what is his state of mind going to be as he's behind this slow person? And I think the equivalent then is what is your state of mind going to be as you're living in a world where there are people who do horrible things that you really don't have any control over, no matter how vocally you are about their wrongness.
Yeah.
You can't get them to speed up. You can't, and so as you are in this place where this stuff happens, how are you going to be? And how is that going to affect you? And how is that going to hit your stuff. Is that going to be then another one of these samskaras that you hold on to, and you put this dam up, and this energy doesn't flow through you? It doesn't mean that you're happy about everything. It doesn't mean that you think everything is okay, just how it is. It doesn't mean that you don't get involved and say, hey, we're going to hunt down this person. We're going to find him. We're going to bring him to justice. And we're going to do what we can to, reduce these things in the world as much as you can. But like, how,
and it's still never fixed.
Like, yeah. And are you saying, like, I remember when Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were a couple, and they said, we're not going to get married until everyone can get married, until gay people can get married, and everybody has equal rights to get married. Okay, that's a very laudable thing to do. Are you going to say, I'm not going to be happy until all of the serial killers in the world are behind bars and things like this never happen in the world again? I'm just not going to be happy, because that's not fair to the victims that have this stuff happen to them.
I'm only trying to note that for the victims of atrocious behaviors that are so long ongoing, that one's hope for the experience to change and move to at least something different or something better, that for those people who are in those situations, again, what I'm saying is that maybe the formula doesn't work for everybody, and some people on the extreme end, and we can get back to talking about most of us, because it's 99% of us that I think can utilize these tools. But just to make an acknowledgement that there may be some people in extreme situations that cannot make use of these tools, even if they were taught this procedure, taught this as a resource, given these skills, it wouldn't help them in the hell that they're in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that many are called and few are chosen, Bill. Oh, I was trying to time that while you had the drink up there, so you kind of like do a spit take on there. Yeah,
no, there's another one.
Yeah, right. But that you mentioned the word hope, and he actually kind of goes off on the word hope for a little bit, and he says, if people think that hope is a spiritual practice, people think that hope is something that is like laudable, but when you're hoping, basically what you're doing is you're saying, I will be happy once this thing in the future happens. Once this thing that isn't how it is right now, then I'll be happy. And so you're putting your own sense of inner peace contingent on something that's totally outside of your control, that's at a time outside of the present moment. And that's you doing it. You're doing that by your hope, and and that hope is going to be based on your samskaras, on the way that your psyche has been formed over the years, your preferences. And so it's that hope is actually keeping you, it's keeping your sense of peace at arm's length. Yeah.
There's a part, I think it's,
and I got to tell you how uncomfortable I feel being a Michael Singer apologist right now when you're talking about, we're doing like the devil's advocate thing, and I'm taking this position of like trying to argue for his points, where I'm not totally 100% a convert of all of this stuff, but I think that's how he would respond to it. But I get nervous in these situations, because I don't ever want it to seem like I'm not mourning with those who have been wronged, or that I don't have sympathy for people, and just like, oh, just bury your head in the sand and let everything go, and everything's okay, and just like let it go and just surrender. I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, maybe to carry this out one little more step, and then we can get back to kind of talking about some of the usefulness of this and some of the thoughts that came up. I had mentioned to you, I don't remember where, but I mentioned to you, like, we have a responsibility to not do harm. And you're like, well, we're just molecules running into each other. We're just energy. And in the whole scheme of things, this universe, the Big Bang happens, the universe is, created, it's ever expanding, Earth gets formed, various life happens, various life dies. Here are humans. We're going to be here for this speck of time. Yes, we develop consciousness. So yes, we can think about the past, and yes, we can think about the future. And, but at some point we all die too, and the earth dies, the sun dies, the universe comes to an end because there's decay, and some point it's all gone. So does it really matter? And my argument to you is, I think it does matter. Like, I think we are responsible to not cause harm and to try to stop harm. And you're like, well, what's what's harm, Bill? You know, and
Which is like how can one whirlwind of indestructible atomic energy harm another whirlwind of indestructible atomic energy or subatomic energy? Yeah, right. I get it. I know what you're saying.
Like why don't you hurt people, Glenn? Why don't you shoplift? Why don't you murder people? Why don't you kidnap? You know, because it's not the right thing to do. And on some level, your insides know that there's an appropriate way to act and an inappropriate way to act. And maybe to some degree, we just acknowledge like most of us don't even desire to do those kinds of things. Our samskaras have us not, you know, the serial killers generally, from what we know about psychology, they're not born serial killers,
right.
But they're raised in homes where the mom is abusive, the dad's abusive, dad's absent, certain things happen. And so we know, like, if you're going to pinpoint a serial killer early on in life before he becomes one, we know that he abuses animals, that he pisses the bed at night, that he has a serious issue with either mom or dad, either not being present in the home or being abusive. And so we know that serial killers get made. So most of us don't even have a desire to do that kind of harm in the world.
And I would say that's an extreme example of samskaras.
Yeah.
Right.
Most of us generally know not to be a dick. In fact, in our friend group, that's our only rule. Don't be a dick. And still, some of us, and in fact, all of us at various times are a dick.
That's such a dick rule.
Yeah, it is, right? So maybe, you know, I get deep down, I think I don't want to take all this, and I wouldn't call it foo-foo. But I don't want to take all this stuff to its extreme end and go harm doesn't matter.
Then why did you, Bill?
So I want to add, like, harm does matter, right? Or do you really think like, you know, we're just molecules running up against each other, and whether we do good or bad, or
what is the whole quest for to have greater peace of mind, but to reduce harm? But it's the self-harm. It's the, like, how am I hurting myself by telling myself these false stories about the way that the world is, or by telling myself that I'm only going to be happy if things are a certain way. And then what I think gets attached to that is that part of that certain way is, you know, I'm not going to allow myself to be happy until the world is a utopia, until you know, there's no longer any harm, or like whatever this pet cause is that one group has, and then another group has another pet cause, and another group has another pet cause, and, you know, we will not rest until this injustice has been righted and resolved. And I don't think that this message is saying don't do that. I don't think it's saying don't engage in the world. It's not saying don't try to make the world a better place. It's saying when you're in the airplane and the oxygen mask comes down, take it and put it on you first, and get your heart to a place where it is this little factory of love making and charity and generosity, so that when you are going out into the world to make it a better place, you're doing it with this really open heart, instead of being closed off, and you've got your own prejudices and your own biases, and you're a little hypocritical because these people over here are okay, but these people aren't for whatever reason. And you know, you just kind of clean all that stuff up inside of you. I don't think that it's a either or kind of proposition, that you release your own samskaras, or you go out and you right all of the wrongs in the world, or that you just say that it's okay how it is and you bury your head in the sand. I don't think that's how it is. I don't think that's the message.
That we stop losing our energy because we're investing energy in things, that we stop exhausting ourselves with the expectation that we can fix it and make it all better, that we can drive all the bad away, or even in any one area, that I can solve this thing, and once this thing's solved, I'll be good. It seems like it's just letting go of the expectation that the world will unfold a certain way.
Yeah, or that the love is going to come from somewhere else other than you.
Yeah.
That the compassion is going to come from someplace else other than you. And I think that once you clear out as much of these samskaras as you can, you don't carry as heavy of a load. You don't get as exhausted as you otherwise would. And you have more capacity to be there for others, to share yourself with others more freely. And
that rings true.
Yeah.
That feels true, that if I'm not invested in the world showing up a certain way, I do my part to be healthy and to share wisdom and to help others, but I'm not invested in them showing up the way I want them to show up. Like I just let go of that expectation.
Yeah. You don't say that your daughter has to, be grateful for the wings with the blue cheese if she's not really. And that's, you're not going to be okay until she's okay. You remove all of that kind of stuff. You go, I'm just going to make myself okay. Yeah. And really, if I see that she's over there suffering, I'm going to do what I can to alleviate that suffering because I love her. And I'm going to just, and I'm going to do that without any kind of conditions, no strings attached.
Yeah. Which reduces your emotional investment in it, even as you're showing up in healthy ways yourself. I don't know if it's at the end of 5 or at the beginning of 6, but he kind of springs on us this new thing. He says, look, there's 3 things always going on. There is, you're the observer, you're in there. And he constantly starts off each episode saying, let's start off from the beginning.
I love his summaries.
You're in there.
Yeah.
And yep, you're in there.
Yeah.
And we're all in here. So the world is unfolding before us.
Yeah.
We're in here. And we're observing. So there is an observation which comes through our senses. It's always spoken of as our eyes, but it's not just our eyes. It's our nose, It's our ears, it's our touch. So we're observing the world through our senses. And then he says we have thoughts.
Yep.
And those thoughts aren't us, although we can with intention create a thought. Or if we don't, we can also have tons of thoughts going through our mind with no intention. He talks about these charges or emotions. We get feelings, we get sensations, we get these charges. And then he suddenly goes, but there's a 4th one. I haven't told you. I told you there's only those 3.
Yeah.
Now there's a 4th one. And that 4th one is this flow of energy.
Yeah.
The first 3 I can comprehend. The 4th one feels to me as it entered woo-woo space.
Yeah.
And so can you,
because he calls it Shakti. And he calls it
cheese
chi
and shaktas and all that stuff. And then you've got your chakras, and he talks about that a little bit too.
Yeah.
And so from your point of view, Glenn, what is this 4th thing, and how have you felt it? How have you experienced it? Help me understand, make connections to when I've felt it and experienced it so that I can go like, oh, it's that thing.
So I don't really know, Bill, but I think it's connected to what he talked about with the heart. And I think it's connected to what I'm talking about with the little factory. I think if I'm going to try to get, like a scientific explanation, we all are beings of energy, right? I mean, like we have electrical charges. We're atoms and quarks, and there's this energy that is inside of us, and the environment outside of us is atoms and quarks and electrons. And so I really don't know the answer to that question. Taking that energy and creating it within ourselves and pushing that out into the world, I think. But I'll go back and I'll listen to it again and see what comes to me as I listen to it. But so you asked me for a time when I have felt that.
Yeah. So whatever he's defining, he's calling it energy flow or chi. Whatever he's defining, I have to be able to have experienced it to even comprehend it, right? None of us know what we don't know. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Like all of us think we understand things until somebody adds more information, and then we go like, oh shit, I didn't know that. And once you know additional information, you can now reprocess something. So when he says observing the world, I get it. I see I see what I see. I hear what I hear. I feel what I feel. I taste what I taste. I smell what I smell. I understand thoughts. I understand how they're not us. And I understand how we can also, with intention, create them. I'm aware of these charges. I feel sensations. I have emotions. I give them names. I know what all that is.
Yeah.
When he says energy flow, I don't know what he's talking about, because he didn't relate it in a way, at least not yet. Again, I'm only up to 6. And so I'm excited about 7, 8, 9.
There's just 8. Yeah. There's just 2 more.
Great.
7 and 8.
Okay. So I'm excited about listening to those and diving into it, but I don't know what he's talking about yet.
Well, let's put a pin in this one, and this will be the homework assignment to come back to the next one with this question with a better answer for it. Because the way that I remember him talking about that sneaky little 4th thing that he slides in is that it's your will, that it's associated with the observer, and that you have some control over how you feel about your thoughts, what you do with those thoughts, what you do with those feelings, what you do about the outside world that's around you. That this 4th category that he's talking about isn't something that is generated by the outside world or by your thoughts or by those feelings. It's something that comes from that part of you that is observing all of these things. So that consciousness. But I don't know if that's really what he said or not.
Yeah. And again, I can only poke at how he articulated it, because I don't know that I can connect the dots to what's inside of me yet. So we'll pin it. But I would say it seems as though he's making this argument that we are constantly trying to have the world show up a certain way so that we can feel good inside, feel at peace inside, feel happy inside, feel content. And he's trying to give us a way to, because we've all felt those. I mean, I can remember my mom passes away, and a few months later, my dad comes out here to the West. I live in southern Utah. My dad lives in Ohio. My dad comes out here, and him and my wife and me, we all go to Vegas, and we just essentially just spend a 3-day weekend in Vegas just having fun. And there's this moment where we are all under the influence of conscious altering tools, drinking and stuff. And there's a band playing on Fremont Street in Vegas. And this band is just a cover band, but the music is so beautiful. And everything just feels so good. And we could just stand there. You're standing on your feet and you're sore standing the whole time for hours on end, literally hours on end, listening to this band. But it's like the most beautiful moment in the world, right? Like, it's just, I could have stayed there forever. Literally, I could have stayed there forever. If these guys kept playing, my brain kept feeling what it was feeling. And the enjoyment coming from it, I just didn't want to leave. We stayed for 3 hours listening to these guys.
Why didn't you stay forever?
Because you got to do something else, right? Like, you got to go experience more experiences. But really, do you? If you're actually having this ultimate joy, really, do you got to go chase down the next thing? You don't. Like, this is the thing you're chasing.
Yeah.
And so I understand this, trying to bring that feeling into this moment, even though that outside thing is not happening.
Yeah. I don't know. My sloppy guess is that thing that you experienced was enhanced by the alcohol and the other things that you alluded to but didn't really specify.
I'm high off my mind.
And the music was the type of music that meshed really well with your samskaras. Maybe it was reggae instead of country, or instead of the Beatles, which you only moderately like, and I'll forgive you for that. And but that was an example of the blending of these 3 things that he talks about: the world that comes in through your senses, your thoughts and your feelings about them as they match up against your set of preferences, your samskaras. And you're like, this is a brilliantly joyful moment where your samskaras aren't just like these misery making things. They also like, hey, this is like things have lined up perfectly in this moment. I could stay here forever, except for the fact that what I drank is going to wear off. The musicians are going to stop playing. I'm going to have to go someplace else. The sun's going to set. It's going to be another day. I can't really hold on to that forever. But in your mind you want to. In your mind you've got like, this is the apex of joy that I've experienced, and what a great way to grieve, you know, your mother's passing, that you were all able to share that and have that experience. But I don't know that I would rush to say that that is anything connected to this enigmatic fourth category that neither of us can really remember. And I think what we should probably do at this point is just insert that part for the listeners so that they can hear it, and then we'll give them the homework assignment with us, like, you try and figure out what this means too. And we'll bring it to our next conversation. We'll all do it together, Bill.
So this is the core, that this concept of the heart opening and the heart closing. What does it mean it opens? Now we're going to get to a much deeper place. I said to you that your experience in there is three things. You experience the world coming in, you experience the thoughts of your mind, and you experience these energies, these emotions that come from your heart. The truth is, but I didn't want to bring it up in the beginning, but we're ready now, there's a fourth thing you experience in there. But most people are not aware enough, subtle enough, to not get lost in what's coming in through their senses, lost by what their mind's doing about it, and lost by the reaction of these emotions from their heart. So while all of those things are distracting you, you can't experience this fourth thing. And that is, there's an energy flow, chi, shakti, spirit, you call it whatever you want. And I'm not being metaphysical, and I haven't changed the level at which we're talking. Because the whole time we've been talking, I was talking about your experience of being in there. So you understand you do get distracted by the world that comes in. And you do get the consciousness, get distracted by the thoughts that are generated and by the emotions that come up. By the time I give you all three of those, bye-bye. You're not even there to talk. If I try to talk to you, you're busy with those. You can't even see past it when I'm trying to take you past it. You understand that? Your mind's reacting, your thoughts don't like this, emotions and so on. When you quiet down enough, and this is where meditation comes in and so on, when you quiet down enough, you will realize what it is that's flowing through the heart. It is an energy flow. There is constantly an energy flow that flows inside of you. Like I said, it goes by many names: spirit, chi, shakti, and I'm sure many, many more that I don't know, okay? And it flows up inside of you. But it can only go as high as you let it. And most people, it doesn't even make its way into the heart most of the time. A little bit always goes through. Like I said, there's always a sense, I'm okay, I'm myself, right? There's just a normal flow that's happening. There are times where it becomes much stronger. The reason the energy is blocked inside is because of these samskaras. That stuff that you couldn't handle from your past, that you shoved away or tried to cling to, took form because you held it in there inside. And now when the energy tries to flow up, which is its natural state to flow up, it can't, because it hits that stuff in there. And when it hits the particular blockage, that blockage manifests, and you start feeling those emotions that are associated with what you stored in there. You start thinking those thoughts that are associated. I mean, I'm telling you deep stuff here, right? In other words, this is like a computer in there that's doing something, and you're just lost in it. You don't understand the process of what's happening. You are not in charge of your emotions. You are not in charge of opening and closing your heart. You are not in charge of your thoughts, are you? Okay? Just try to meditate once and see how little control you have in there. The entire inner environment is what I'm telling you. It is the dance of Shakti. It is the dance of Chi. The energy's trying to come up, but it can't, because you put these energetic patterns. They aren't real things inside. They are, remember, they were the renderings that happened in your mind about what was happening outside, and then you pushed it away. So they are literally energetic patterns that are blocked inside of you. Those block the flow of energy coming through your heart. Makes me want to cry when I look at you straight. Those block the energy flowing through your heart. Those block the energy flowing through your whole system. That is your chakra system. That is the whole energy system that is flowing inside. Most people don't experience it. If you will follow these teachings, by the time we're done, there will come a day where you know what I'm talking about. And most of you already do. Where there is so much energy flowing inside of you, it is like the rush of holy waters. There's just this constant upward flow that's flowing through your entire system, shooting out the top of your head, out your third eye, and out your hands and palms. You become a being of light. You become a being of energy. That is when the energy is free to flow. It is not blocked by these personal blockages. We're going to discuss this when we get later on in the course. But the importance of talking about it now is I can't explain to you why your heart opens and closes, or why it has doors that can open and close, and why certain situations open and close your heart, unless you understand why it's not open. And the reason it's not open is you shove this stuff down there like the Hoover Dam, okay? And as you do that, it affects the energy flow. So what happens now is your normal state is you have all these samskaras, all these blockages stored in there, the energy like a river, okay? And if you ever watched a stream or a river, there are rocks in that river. Where does the water go? Around them, all right? It goes around them. And as it goes around them, it creates eddies and currents, and it has to go over them, right? It creates disturbances in the force, in the flow. But it finds its way around, doesn't it? That the main flow, that is what is happening inside your heart. That is what's happening inside your energy system. The energy is trying to flow. It can't because it's blocked. So it's trying to find a way. It's trying to literally tiptoe through the tulips. And if it finds a way around what mommy did and around what daddy did, and about that time when Ben said this to you and how that happened, and just curves its way around, a little energy will come up that can feed you. And so you feel, how you feeling today? I feel okay, right? It's a game I used to play. You want to know spirituality? Ask somebody how they're doing. They'll say, okay, not too bad. It's been worse. Okay, it'll get better. I feel good. That's a positive person. It'll get better, right? They don't say ecstatic. I do. I make a point. Everybody has to sound ecstatic, right? It blows them away. It's true, right? What kind of an answer is I'm doing okay? What kind of way is that to live your life? That means enough energy made it around your blockages to where you feel a certain amount of upliftment, a certain amount of joy, a certain amount of whatever, right? Until what happens? Until something from outside comes in and stimulates your blockage. Until Ben, your ex, the name gets said, it's just in a movie, anywheres. I guarantee you don't feel the same as before it happened.
I don't really necessarily have anything else to go into. I've been thinking a lot lately about the word compersion. I think, did you mention that word? Yeah, did you mention that word in an earlier?
I don't know that I've ever heard that word before.
Okay, it's a new word that's been invented in the last, few decades. And it's tied to the polyamorous community. And they invented this word to mean when you take joy in someone else feeling joy in their experience, in spite of the fact that it's not exactly what your stuff inside would prefer. And so in the polyamorous community, it's, when you let your wife go out and have intimacy with someone else, she's having a blast of a time and you're feeling good about it because you get joy out of her joy. Even though your stuff inside wouldn't do that and it feels jealousy and it doesn't want these. So for instance, I did an episode a couple of days ago where I talk about me and my wife went bowling. I'm a really competitive guy, Glenn. I love athletics and I always want to win. And if I lose, I'm butthurt about it. If I play basketball with you, I have to win or I get pissy inside. Now I'll be a good sportsman and I'll put on the good front and I'll smile and shake your hand and say good game.
Yeah, you'd be really pissy, Bill, if we played basketball.
Hey, I've got a torn ACL right now, so you win.
Yeah, there we go.
But I'm bowling with my wife and she's bowling the game of her life. Every frame is a spare or a strike, literally. She ends up bowling, I think, a 140. I think she had one frame where she didn't get a spare. She had one strike, two strikes, but the rest were spares. She just did really good. And I'm having this complete joy in how good she's playing, even though she's kicking my ass. Yeah. And normally I would be inside going like, oh, come on, throw a gutter. Give me a chance to sneak back up on you. Give me a chance to come back. And as I'm doing something different, having complete joy about how she's doing well, I look over to the left of me and there's another group bowling and there's guys in this group of friends or family that is just uber competitive. Cold stares, he bowls, he gets a spare and he walks right back to his seat and sits down kind of with a cold face. And he's really not enjoying this great moment to be with these people he cares about, his family or his friends. And he's just so set on winning, right? His samskaras are imposing that he has to not embarrass himself. He has to win or be close to the top. He has to be. And so he's so focused on that he's losing the moment of this joy with these people who are in his life. And I'm watching that. And then I'm also realizing my own setting that aside and enjoying my wife having this experience. And so the word compersion, when I think of what's going on with Michael Singer, I think there's some level of learning to be happy with, even as unhappiness is happening and you're feeling unhappiness because things don't happen the way you want them to, learning to be happy with just the joy of life in front of you, the joy of whatever is going on, that someone else is having a good experience, something else is unfolding for someone else, and you're sitting with your shit as it doesn't happen the way you want it to, but you're also finding ways to make peace with that.
Yeah.
And I think part of making peace with that is being, maybe you're at a party and the music they're playing isn't the music you want. But you know what? You can look over at some other person at the party who's having a blast because it is their kind of music. And you can appreciate this present moment and enjoy it from their perspective rather than bitching and moaning inside you because it's not the music you like.
Yeah.
I think there are better ways to do this thing. And again, I don't know if he would tie directly to that, but I think that's one of the things I do when I'm in an experience I don't like is I try to find someone who is enjoying the experience.
Yeah. And I think he might push back a little bit at the use of the word happy in those situations, because you might not always be happy with what comes in. And if you're trying to make yourself happy about something that you're not really happy about, then you're pushing against what's coming on. Just, you're creating another samskara with that. But if you just kind of allow things to be what they are and you're at peace with them for how it is, because what he keeps talking about over and over again is this moment that you're in took 13.8 billion years to show up exactly how it is, and that's incredible and that's amazing. Yeah. And
you get one split moment with it, and then we move on to the next one. You get one split moment.
Yeah, and what a gift it is for you to be able to experience it, whatever it is. So if you're being mugged or you're having something really, really horrible happen to you, are you going to be grateful for that experience in that moment? Are you going to be happy? Are you going to be at peace with it? Is it, like that's where it gets a little bit problematic to me. But I think in your bowling example, you've been able to shift your own sense of inner peace to allow for your wife's success to make you happy. And, you don't have to just win at her expense. But what if you were both just sucking it up? What if she twisted her ankle, or you twisted your ankle, or some horrible thing happened? Would you still be able to be at peace with it, or would you go, oh, that just was, we shouldn't have gone, it was a terrible experience because it still didn't match my expectations of how I wanted things to go? Are you able to go like, wow, that was amazing, it took 13.8 billion years to get to a point where I could twist my ankle or have this horrible thing, so,
right.
Like, I think a lot of this stuff is kind of pie in the sky, but it's still, if I'm going to be trying to do anything with my life, I'll try to do things to create peace and be more accepting of the moments that are there in front of me, and try to get out of my own way whenever I possibly can. So yeah,
I don't know what to add. I don't yet know how to be at peace other than to know, like, oh, this moment will pass and something else is going to happen. Like, I can do it from that angle, but he seems to be suggesting, like, could you do it if that moment never passes? Could you do it if only bad things happen for the next 10 days? Could you do it if, could you appreciate the moment in front of you, even if there was no expectation that something better was going to happen
right
after this bad experience? And I don't know that I'm there yet. And I don't know that I can even comprehend what that looks like or feels like to do that.
I think the only way to do that is to just really be in the moment that you're in, and not worrying about, well, if this thing happens, am I going to be able to be at peace right now? But just like, okay, well, right now, as I'm sitting here having this conversation with you, like, how do I feel? And am I having a peaceful moment? And I am, Bill. And it doesn't have anything to do with you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
me too. All right. So I'm excited about the next two. Send those to me as soon as you can. What other pieces do we need to cover here? Is there something we've left out?
Oh, I'm sure there are plenty of things that we left out, but yeah, for people who are interested in this, I mean, once again, I mentioned it in the first one that we recorded, but Sounds True is the platform that sells this series, and it's an 8-course series, I think, and it's got Surrender. Maybe it's called The Path to Surrender. It's really worth the money. I think it's like $120 or maybe it's $90. I don't know. It's something like that, depending on what deals they have. But it's 8 courses that are, each one is about an hour. Some are a little longer, some are a little shorter, and he's really repetitive in these concepts, but that helps. And I was glad to hear that you had listened to these twice before coming in, because when I first heard these back in May or June or whenever it was, I listened to them nonstop. I just loved them. And I can't say that they've totally like completely imprinted on me. I mean, obviously you threw some things at me tonight that I didn't know the answers to, but it really has changed the way that I show up in my relationships with my kids, with my partner, people that I work with. Like I enjoy my interactions with people a lot more now than I used to. And I'm much more curious about who people are. There's something about that instead of like judging and going, ooh, that doesn't look like the kind of person that I would want to interact with, or like for whatever reason I might have that. It feels like that has gone away. Like I don't have that like I used to, I think. Unless I'm fooling myself, Bill. I've done that before. That's always a possibility.
Yeah. The idea of spiral dynamics, which I think you've talked about before on Infants on Thrones, but this idea that we continually spiral around, revisiting all these kinds of ideas and shadows inside us and wrestling with things. And every time we revisit a topic, we gain something more, we develop a little further. So, again, having listened to it twice, and you're kind of talking about how this has all been improvement to your life, but maybe it isn't real. I think it is real. I think the more we think about why we do things the way we do as humans, we get a chance to do it a little better. And again, I know you're saying, okay, better or worse, what is that? But there is some reason that you're attracted to this series and what it's done for you, and you feel like you're showing up in the world as a healthier human being. And so there is something positive, even if positive and negative are myths, right? I'll share one last little story, and then I'm happy to close if you don't have anything else. But I've got in the past, I had a friend who, when we would get together with that friend and other friends, something would often disrupt this person, and this person would fall into kind of a emotional hole, and they would constantly be going like, oh, I fucked up. I shouldn't have said that. I hurt somebody's feelings. So now I'm going to walk away from the group, and I'm going to go sit in a corner, and
You've got such a potty mouth now, Bill.
I know. And I actually enjoy it. I love swearing. I did an episode on swearing, and I listened to I think it was a Radio Lab podcast where they talked about how we choose the swear words we do in each culture, and how they're all sharp words. They start or end with sharp sounds. And the biggest words we have of swear words begin and end with sharp sounds. Wow. Think of the F word.
I don't have to. I just heard it.
This friend gets herself into a hole, and she just stays there all night. She misses an hour of the party. And the moment you decide to be present again, the moment you go like, okay, I messed up 20 minutes ago, so what? Let's now re-enter the human space of interaction and just put it behind me and re-engage, pretending as if I'm okay again. And then within seconds, go fast forward 10 minutes, you literally are okay again. You're back in the conversation. Somebody's talking about something different. You're re-engaging the group. You're laughing. And I think this ties in too, that the moment you choose to be present in the moment when something hard just happened 5 minutes ago that hurt you, you choose to be present again and re-enter. If you're not being hurt in this moment, you get to put away that being hurt in that moment and re-engage what's going on around you. And again, it's the fastest, healthiest way to not be caught up in the hole that you were in 5 minutes ago. And it's this whole idea of past and future. And again, he's not saying that directly. These are just things that I feel are tied directly to this process.
Yeah.
So anyway, just my little story there, that the moment you choose to not be in the rabbit hole you're in, or the dark hole of hell that you're in from something that happened 2 moments ago, you're not in it anymore. The moment you choose not to be in it, you're not in it anymore. You get to move on with the next moment.
Yeah, I think there's a real power in taking responsibility for the stories that you're telling yourself, the fictions you're telling yourself, the feelings that you're feeling, and going, okay, the reason that I'm in this hole is because I have these samskaras. Something hit my stuff and I went, oh, I don't like this. That's my doing. It's not the result of whatever came in. It's just atoms that are interacting with other atoms. But I'm the one that put the dam on the Colorado River that created this patterns of preference for me. And whatever happened didn't hit my preferences. I'm the one who built this sets of preferences. I'm the one who can make a decision about whether I'm going to let those continue to ruin my night or not. And, I think it takes time. I don't think that you can just flip a switch and turn it off like a light switch. There's another kind of one of those little references in there, because we've also heard that, if you don't like it, just turn it off, like a light switch. It kind of borders on that. Right. But,
right.
But it's about taking personal responsibility. So when in my relationship with Cammie, when she gets upset or when I get upset, we both recognize now, I'm doing something that is upsetting myself here. I'm not going to blame this on you. And I don't know if you're familiar with the nonviolent communication books, a way of taking ownership for when this thing happens, I feel this way about it. And the reason that I feel this way about it is because I have a history of building up these preferences to it. And so I'm going to right now take that responsibility. I'm going to ride it out. What I do is I start breathing and I relax my body and just try to ride out the emotion. And it seems to be working.
I can relate to. Anything else that comes up for you as you kind of think about these three parts?
Not totally related, but Ted Lasso. Have you watched that TV show yet with Jason Sudeikis? It's on Apple TV.
What's the name of the show?
It's Ted Lasso.
Oh, it is. That's the name of the show, Ted Lasso. I'm not familiar with it.
He's it's fantastic. I'll just say that. It's kind of silly in certain ways, but he kind of takes this philosophy of being really positive in even some really hard situations that he goes through. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. And in fact, I think I want to insert a scene where he's talking about the importance of being curious instead of judging people.
Rupert, guys have underestimated me my entire life. And for years, I never understood why. It used to really bother me. But then one day, I was driving my little boy to school, and I saw this quote by Walt Whitman. It was painted on the wall there. It said, "Be curious, not judgmental." I like that. So I get back in my car, and I'm driving to work, and all of a sudden, it hits me. All them fellas that used to belittle me, not a single one of them were curious. They thought they had everything all figured out, and so they judged everything, and they judged everyone. And I realized that they're underestimating me. Who I was had nothing to do with it. Because if they were curious, they would ask questions. Questions like, have you played a lot of darts, Ted? Which I would have answered, yes, sir. Every Sunday afternoon at a sports bar with my father from age 10 until I was 16 when he passed away. Barbecue sauce.
Instead of judging situations, like having real, genuine curiosity and how that can make a shift in the way that you feel about the world around you. And I think that's an example of opening up your heart instead of closing it. So I would recommend.
Do you know who streams that? Is it on Netflix? Is it on Amazon Prime?
Apple TV.
Apple TV.
Yeah, it's one of those Apple TV shows. Yeah, but a listener of Infants on Thrones recommended it to me last week, and so Cammie and I started watching it, and we burned through it. It's 10 episodes, season 1, 30 minutes each, and I really liked it. Fish out of water. He's like this kind of Southern guy, goes to England to coach their football/soccer club, and that's it. Good show, man.
Cool. I'll check it out. Then in that movie Lucy, I'm going to check that out tonight.
Oh yeah. And then Jason Mraz's reggae album, Look for the Good. I sent you that link. So I know you like reggae. That's an awesome one too.
I do. I love reggae. It seems to speak to that idea. Like, you can't fix everything. Just be the best you can be in this moment.
So stop, turn off all of the presidential and vice presidential debates, quit watching the news, stop filling yourself full of all that toxic stuff.
Yeah.
And, learn how to love yourself instead of building up all these samskars about how awful the world is.
Yeah, I love it. No, I love it. I love this has been helpful. I listened to I think I read The Untethered Soul 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
A lot of the things I read are playing in this space of being present and aware and sitting with your shiz instead of worrying about how it's not being, your expectations aren't being met in any given moment. This feels natural to me. So I'm excited to listen to these last 2, and we'll have a wrap-up conversation where we kind of hit on what's there, and then hopefully the listeners are getting something from this too. And like you say, I think everybody should go listen to the actual 8-part series and put a little money down. What's $120 if it's life-changing?
Yeah. And it may not be, it might not speak to people the way it speaks to me. But man, I sure have loved it.
Cool. Well, I'm excited. We'll listeners should expect to hear from us maybe another week or so.
Yeah, right on.
Okay, send me those 2, and I'll get out of your way and let you get back to your evening. I appreciate your time, and I find these conversations fun. I even had a thought. I've thought this a few times in the last few weeks that you and I probably appreciate our own ownership of our own product. But I think you and I would do really well to do a podcast together.
I think we are. I think it's just already happening.
No, I agree. But I mean something that has a little bit of a run to it.
Well, I haven't told you yet my idea to do the letting go David Hawkins following up this stuff. So I've got more ideas, Bill.
I love it. Well, let's keep doing it. And as long as we're both releasing it in our own product, then I think I feel good about it.
All right. Sounds good. Hey, here's a bug. How much you want to eat it? $20 from your listeners?
Yeah, you know what?
My listeners
somebody
might pay me
offers
30.
me, yeah. One guy pulled out like 6 or 7 20s out of his pocket, stuffed it in my pocket when no one's looking. I was ready to eat the bug.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a great night, and I'll save my audio here on my end. And listeners, I'm just excited for you to kind of hear these conversations. I think you're a bright guy, Glenn, and I think these conversations are super helpful to awakening and inner work that we're all trying to do.
Yeah. A ditto, Bill. You're also bright.
Yeah, thank
Dazzling.
you.
Brilliant and shining. so bright I got to wear shades. All right.
Okay, have a great night.
See you, Bill.
Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Almost Awakened podcast. And I hope this conversation is beneficial to you as you're going through the waking up process. Don't forget to check out our Reddit page, Reddit. Is a website that hosts various forums. One of those forums is Almost Awakened. We are growing there, and we share lots of links there to articles, podcasts, websites, different research being done that's to help you in your awakening process. I hope that you enjoyed today's conversation with Glenn Ostlund from Infants on Thrones. And if you feel so inclined, please donate to keep this podcast alive at the website almostawakened.org.